Hi everybody, welcome to this video. It's going to be about MK versus Wycombe. Obviously, differences in the two sides is quite marked in terms of league table position, but I mean, if you look at the odds this morning, MK are pretty heavy favourites for the game. So that'll be quite interesting. You would have to say that obviously the result in midweek was a very big one, and I think in terms of where things will go between now and the end of the season. There's obviously a 6-point gap now between MK and Tranmere. Tranmere do have 2 games in hand, but they have to win both of them and by a big goal difference. So in order for positions to change. Now, obviously, they're away at Bolton today, so that's a very big game for both teams. Bolton seem to have really come off the heat after having an initial good turn of results. So that's really a must-win game you would have thought for Tranmere. Should be quite a good game this afternoon. I mean, Wycombe are you'd have to give tremendous credit to the way that they've performed so far this season. You know, second in the league. When a lot of people at the start of the season were thinking that they might be one of the teams that might be in and around the drop zone. You know, you look at the resources that Ainsworth has, and you know the job that he's done is pretty tremendous, really. I mean, they are also renowned for being quite a physical team, but at the end of the day, you know, when you're a club of the resources that they have, and you know, I'm not saying that they're a small club or anything like that, but you know, you've got to deal with what you have, and you know, when you compare Wycombe with the teams around them, you know, the Sunderlands and the Portsmouths of these worlds, you know, they're not they're not going to compete financially. So you know, you've got to say that Ainsworth has done a very good job there, and you know, if it continues to happen, then you also got to think about, or they're probably worried that if a bigger club comes in from him. I mean, obviously Sunderland were rumoured to be interested in him pre-Christmas, but he's still there, which is again a credit to him. Curiously, Wycombe are without Akinfenwa, who is absent from the game to watch the Super Bowl. I'm not sure how I would feel about that if I were a Wycombe fan, but that's not really the case. And I mean, to be honest with you, he's exactly the type of player that MK have struggled against this year. So you know, I think that they'll probably be quite happy about that. So yeah, it should be an interesting game. The weather is set fair currently. I suspect we're going to hear an awful lot about this the B issue, the Brexit issue. I would imagine today, we're around the stands, because obviously it was enacted last night, and it is what it is. Really, now we just have to deal with it. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens today. It's interesting. It seems like I would imagine that both teams will probably be reasonably happy with a draw from the game. However, there's not been a draw at home all season for MK, at least in the league. So they've been very strong at home recently. MK won 5 out of the last 6 at home. The one they lost was Sunderland. So you know, it's going to be a tough game. You would have thought Wycombe would be strong and organised defensively and good from set pieces. And you know, we will see how MK deal with it, because ultimately I would think that if MK play well, then they have enough to win the game. But you know, football isn't on paper, is it? So you know, hopefully it'll be a good game, and I'll see you guys later on today. Hi again, evening everybody. Some post-match thoughts, so I get the words out eventually, about today's game. So MK won the game 2-0. So some initial reactions, obviously, that that takes the stretch of form for MK from or to 6 wins in the last 7 home games, and that has seen them really kind of pull away now. But other results have generally gone for them. Tranmere have lost again against Bolton, and now there's a 9-point gap. And as alluded to earlier, I mean, it'll appear literally right next to each other based on when I put these clips together. They may have 2 games in hand, but given the run of form they're on, you have to assume that the likelihood is that winning both of them will be a tall order. But you never know in football, do you? I mean, it was only a couple of months back that MK were really struggling and on a massive losing streak themselves. So, I mean, it can go the other way. You'd have to say that Southend and Bolton look very much down. Anyway, let's talk about the game first of all. It's a really kind of tough one because actually the game itself wasn't very good. I don't think it was very good. Obviously, I think there was certainly more atmosphere there than a lot of other games that I have been to at the stadium. That doesn't necessarily mean that it was a particularly nice atmosphere, but I mean, at the end of the day, that does tend to happen in football. You know, you don't go there expecting people to be particularly nice to one another. It just always seems to be the trend. I mean, I must admit that it's a bit of a strange rivalry, MK and Wycombe, because they are in the same county, but they are genuinely miles apart because Buckinghamshire is so long, and it takes about an hour to get from Wycombe to MK, at least across county. I don't know whether it would be any quicker if you go around the motorway. I can't say I've looked particularly. So, and there's no doubt that MK gets both Northampton and Luton, probably Watford, much quicker. But anyway, you know, it was a good atmosphere. You can clearly see that Wycombe are, and I don't mean this to sound disrespectful in any way. Wycombe are a limited side with what they do, and that's understandable because of the amount of resources at their disposal. But it looks like what they do, they concentrate very much on their strengths, which is to get it forward very quickly and get it into the box as many times as possible. And you know, I don't think they were particularly great at it today, but you can see that on another day that they would quite likely give opposition a handful. And you can see that, to be honest, they probably missed Akinfenwa today because you can see that somebody of his build, if the ball is constantly coming in the box, would be very difficult to handle. But certainly today, they had a lot of situational play. So they had a lot of corners. They had a lot of balls going into the box from crosses and free kicks and so on. And a lot of it wasn't very good. And I said, I don't know whether that was. I don't know. Do they have players missing? I'm unaware. But at the same time, I would imagine that over the course of this season previously, that the quality must have been better, because the number of times that they had really good crossing opportunities and it just hit Nichols time after time, when nobody else around him was not great. But you know, they're clearly a well drilled, well organised side. They're good at the back, and you have to say that the goals that MK scored were not really as a result of the defence per se. But I'll talk about that in a minute. First half, complete non-event really. It was very, very niggly. There were a lot of fouls.
it seemed like both teams were trying to get players sent off from either sides, because whenever they were going up to head the ball, one of the players invariably ended up rolling around on the deck afterwards, claiming foul play. No team got into any kind of rhythm. There was a one half deflected opportunity for Wycombe, and it's just it was a half to forget, really. Second half, Wycombe actually started quite well. From memory, it had quite a few corners at the beginning, and they didn't really test Nichols from any of them in terms of making a save. I think he claimed a few of them, but they didn't really test him. MK had a few opportunities, especially on the break when Numbe again looked sharp, was running at the defence, but there were a couple of opportunities where if he'd have whipped it across much sooner, then there would have been a really good chance to score. But that didn't happen. And literally just before they did eventually score, they had a really good opportunity through George Williams. That was very, very well saved by the keeper. And it was a bit of ironic, really, or a bit of a... Sorry, my words are slightly thin because I'm quite tired. That eventually he did have a mistake that led to a goal. The first goal was reasonably well worked. It was spread out wide from a corner. Fed in by Houghton, and Healy found a bit of space at the back post, and it was a very easy finish. And that was a nice goal. He couldn't really miss it, really. The key was getting the cross in and a flick on by Morris. I thought Morris again was excellent, by the way. I thought Williams got man of the match, but I thought Morris looked a cut above every other player on the pitch. In this game, his hold up play was excellent. One thing he could have done is maybe a couple of times got the ball off a bit quicker to wingers or people in space, but generally he was very good. Second goal, Gladwin picked it up, and he didn't really have anything else on, so he had a bit of a pop at goal. And I've seen a couple of reports already that suggest it was some kind of stunning strike, and clearly it was a reasonable enough strike to get past the keeper, but I think the keeper will be disappointed not to have saved that shot, because it looked like it went under him, really. Which is not, it's not great. I think I'd have been disappointed if the home keeper would have done that. But at the end of the day, like I said, these keepers are human and they make mistakes. But the problem is that when keepers make mistakes, it ends up in the back of the net more times than not. But obviously a couple of injury worries, both strikers for MK. So Morris came off, and at the end he had a nice pack on his thigh. That's obviously a bit of a concern. And Healy, who's not long back from injury, came off. He wasn't moving terribly badly, but maybe it was a precautionary thing. I've yet to see Martin's I wouldn't say press conference, but his Q&A after the game, to see if there's if it was a precautionary thing. But I think Morris is the bigger worry, because he did have a nice pack strapped to it after being subbed. So it would appear that if he has got a tweak there, then it'll probably take a week or two to get ready. One of the good things, I guess, is that I don't think there's any midweek games coming up, so it's just the Shrewsbury game next Saturday. I guess that they've said that Mason's injury isn't too bad. They got Kieran Agar, who wasn't even on the bench today, which was a bit of a surprise. If they're going to keep Agar, they probably need to make use of him. They've got options there if they can't make it. But it would be a blow to lose Healy, because Healy has scored 8 goals now, and he missed 3 months of the season, the 3 months where they lost all the games. So it's obviously good to have him back, and he adds a dynamic to the team that maybe wasn't there before. But obviously with Morris now, you've got added quality, and I said he really does look. He really does look like a quality player, and that he couldn't get into Rotherham's team is Rotherham are top for a good reason at the minute. Anyway, I'm not going to linger on that. Wycombe, I think they will be disappointed not to have left with anything, because did MK do enough to win the game? Obviously they in the scorebook it's 2-0, and so obviously the answer to that is yes, I guess. But at the same time, I think they will be a little bit disappointed because of the amount of play that they had and the amount of opportunities to feed the ball into the box, which were not great quality, which I assume is not a symptom of their season so far. So I think that they will obviously have to work on that. Play-wise, I think it was very even. I think probably, if it had finished a draw, both teams would have been, okay, that's fine. And maybe, or if it was one goal either way, but I think both teams would have been, okay, well, that's football, that can happen. 2-0, I think, is a little bit, I can't think of the right word. 2-0 is a little bit glamorous, whatever, towards MK. But at the end of the day, it's a win, and you move on from there. Really, I do also have to have a word for the ref, who is hands down the worst ref I've seen this season. Absolutely terrible refereeing performance. You know that you're not having a good day when both sets of fans are raging at you. So let's say, for example, first half, like I said, there was a lot of niggle going on there and some silliness going on, and Lewington goes up for a header with Wheeler, and it didn't look an awful lot in it to me. Referee gives a foul, books Lewington, and you're a bit like, well, I didn't see anything there, and it was quite close to me because I sit quite near the dugouts, and I didn't see anything there. About 2 minutes later, a similar tussle. Again, the free kick goes for Lewington this time against Wheeler. Wheeler had his arm up like this in Lewington's face. That could easily have been it was at least a yellow, but the referee didn't give anything, and you're a bit like, okay. And this happened a few more kind of times, and the amount of times that he was giving free kicks with very soft things, and then there were situations where it looked pretty clear foul for one side or the other, and he would just ignore it. Both Lewington and Wycombe's number 4, whose name I forget off the top of my head, both committed fouls that really should have been second yellows. Lewington's was only in the 50th minute, which would have obviously changed the dynamic of the match entirely. I think he was really quite fortunate not to have a second yellow card at that point. And the Wycombe guy, again, it was not a great challenge and should have been a second yellow card. And it was just, and there were 7 minutes added on at the end, and about 5 of those were caused by the referee, by faffing. And like, for example, just before MK scored, they had a free kick just outside the area, and it took a good 2 minutes for the referee to set this thing up. What are you doing? Why does it take that long to set a free kick up? You've got to measure out 10 yards. You've got to make sure the defenders stay back, behind the line. It doesn't take 2 minutes. It takes about 30 seconds. Get on with it. There was a situation where when Wycombe were clearly getting frustrated, and one of their defenders hoofed the ball into the stand, and he was busy having a chinwag with the steward. What are you doing? Get on with the game. If you want to talk about things with the steward after the game, do it after the game. But so the majority of the added time was caused by the ref, and it's like, rah. I don't know how Google captioned that. Not Google, YouTube. I get it right in the end. It was a poor performance from him. Obviously, Wycombe won't be able to blame the ref for the result. At the end of the day, their final ball was simply not good enough consistently over the course of the game. They had enough opportunities to put the ball into good areas and didn't do so. The second goal was I think not a great bit of goalkeeping. I think keeper should have saved it. Next up, of course. No, I was going to waffle about rubbish because Wycombe is a place that I did my masters in, so I'm actually quite familiar with Wycombe, which is quite ironic. Anyway, I don't want to waffle. MK have got Shrewsbury away next week, which Shrewsbury are mid-table. I don't think they're going to get sucked into a relegation battle. Obviously, they've got a replay against what might turn out to be a Liverpool 8th side in whenever. I don't know. I assume it'll be sometime in the next week. They MK have Bolton at home on the 22nd of February. I assume, I'm not 100% sure, that there must be another game in between those two. But they didn't have it on the tannoy, so I don't know whether there is or not. But I assume there is. Anyway, I'll find out later on. The important thing is that next week at Shrewsbury away, which, it's another new stadium. The pitch is generally pretty good. And, there's a good opportunity there to go and pick up some points. You would have to say now that it's looking very, very much like that Tranmere will struggle to get out of it. They need to have playoff form between now and the end of the season to turn things around there. And you never know with football, because it's a funny old game. And once you get on a roll, it seems a much easier game than what it did before. And it can happen. Will it happen? You would have thought the odds are against it, but we'll see. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'm going to stop rambling. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. And yeah, I'll see you again soon. Probably the Bolton game would have thought would be the next one. So thank you very much. Goodbye.